The war between Russia and Ukraine continues, leaving the West with little hope of easing tensions. We spoke with Belgian history professor David Engels, who takes a philosophical look at Russia and its interaction with the West, and explains why it will never be possible to integrate Russia into the Western world.
David Engels is a historian and professor at the Université Libre de Brussels in Belgium. He shared his thoughts on Russia and the risks the Western world is facing. He believes the hope to westernize Russia is rather naive.
Russia is a civilization of her own, that it is not part of the Western civilization, exactly as China, India, or the Muslim world are also not part of the Western civilization. So when I said Russia can never be integrated into the West, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm denigrating Russia, but rather that simply I don't believe it will ever be possible to integrate Russia as some form of classical nation state.
Engels says Western civilizations adhere to the nation-state logic, whereas Russia has an imperial model. He says in that framework, the nation means much less than the idea of a Russian space, where many different ethnic, cultural, and religious groups coexist.
That doesn't mean, of course, that we can't cooperate and even complement each other, but the hope to westernize Russia that is harbored, unfortunately, by many, or also the wish that somehow Russia will come to save Western conservatism, as many conservatives, unfortunately, harbor it also, seems both very naive to me.
Engels says because many Western conservatives are rejecting ideologies like multiculturalism, mass migration, and cancel culture, some are looking for solutions further east. But he says that displays a lack of faith in oneself, because Russia is a KGB state that uses conservative rhetoric to hold everything together. The professor says how conservatism was defined in the past few decades might not be helpful now, because it's not something we would really like to go back to. In his view, conservatism should be defined as the striving for transcendence.
The belief in something that is higher, by an ideal entity, by something we can call goodness, truth, beauty, and where we know that there is some part of us that belongs to that transcendence.
He feels a positive relationship should be nurtured to phases of history where our ancestors were seeking an existence higher than that of the ordinary human level. Engels says the self-contempt many Western countries are showing is typical for an old and spent civilization.
This war of aggression shows it very strongly. It shows to what degree, to what incredible degree, the Europe has become demilitarized, what weakness, even what cowardice most governments are showing. So that is, of course, very sobering.
Engels believes Russia needs to be contained or there's a real risk of the war spreading further into Europe.
The performance of the Russian army is so negative that this risk is decreasing by the day, but still being able just to annex parts of a neighboring country by military aggression would be an enormous case of precedence, and it would be followed sooner or later by similar aggressions.
But he foresees another concerning possibility, the risk of civil war.
Given this risk from the inside, but also given the menace that is coming from Russia, but also from the competition by communist China and by mass migration from Africa, that Europe is currently in a very shaky, unsure situation. Europe is sitting, I would say, on some form of powder keg.
The historian says we can only hope the risk will diminish over the coming years.